In 2022, Temu didn't exist. In 2023, it was the most downloaded app in the United States. In 2024, it lost an estimated $30 per order. It is still open. This is not a retail company. This is a machine designed to bleed money on purpose. The question is not how long it can survive. The question is what it is building while it bleeds. Temu is owned by PDD Holdings, Chinese company, NASDAQ listed, $130 billion valuation. It does not manufacture products. It does not own warehouses in the West. It is a direct pipeline between 80,000 Chinese manufacturers with excess inventory and a Western consumer trained to expect free shipping. The mechanism is precise. Chinese factories overproduce, demand projections fail. Inventory accumulates with no domestic buyer. Temu acquires that stock at liquidation prices, sometimes below manufacturing cost, and sells it to you below what you would pay anywhere else. The factory clears inventory. Temu acquires a user. You get a $3 blender. Nobody makes money on that transaction. That is not an accident. That is the architecture. To understand why, you need to understand what Temu is actually counting when it counts an order. It is not counting revenue. It is counting a user acquired, a behavioral profile initiated, a data point added to a system that is being built at a scale that has no precedent in the history of retail. Temu spent $1.7 billion on advertising in 2023 alone. Super Bowl ads, Meta, Google, TikTok. The customer acquisition cost per user is estimated between $53 and $76. The average first order value is $25. The average loss per order is $30. The math is structurally broken, by design. PDD Holdings is not building a retailer. It is executing a market displacement strategy at industrial scale. Every dollar lost on a Temu order is a dollar invested in a single objective. Make Western consumers structurally dependent on Chinese priced goods before any regulatory response can take effect. The target is Amazon. The method is price attrition. The timeline is measured in years, not quarters. PDD Holdings holds $45.4 billion in cash reserves as of December 2024. That is not a startup balance sheet. That is a war chest. It can sustain losses at current scale for a decade without approaching insolvency. Amazon's response has been predictable. It launched Amazon Haul, a direct from China low price section, in late 2024. The largest retailer on the planet built a discount channel to compete with a company that does not need to be profitable. That is the signal. When Amazon changes its architecture to respond to a competitor, the competitor has already won the first phase of the war. Temu is not a shopping app. It is the retail front of a geopolitical strategy. PDD Holdings launched Temu in September 2022, exactly when US-China trade tensions reached their highest point since the trade war of 2018. That timing is not coincidental. It is calculated. The strategic logic is 3 layers deep. Layer 1. Consumer dependency. If Western consumers spend 3 years buying below-cost goods from Chinese manufacturers, their price expectations reset permanently. No domestic retailer can compete with a supply chain subsidized by $45 billion in reserves. The dependency becomes structural before the consumer notices it happened. Layer 2. Supply chain displacement. Every small Western retailer that closes because it cannot match Temu prices is a node removed from the domestic supply chain. When that chain is thin enough, no domestic alternative can be rebuilt quickly. Layer 3. Data infrastructure. Every purchase, every search, every abandoned cart across 431 million downloads is behavioral intelligence. Purchase patterns, location data, financial behavior under economic pressure, consumption habits of the Western middle class at the precise moment when that class is under maximum financial strain. All the evidence suggests the platform is not a marketplace, but a high-resolution sensor array designed for predictive behavioral modeling. In a geopolitical crisis, that asymmetry becomes leverage. 3 layers, 1 platform, 0 profit required. The United States government noticed the 3rd layer first. The House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, the body created by the US Congress specifically to monitor CCP operations on American soil, formally flagged Temu as a national security concern. So did the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, the body that oversees every US spy agency. Not because of the products, because of the data architecture behind them. Both committees, same target, same week. The question they sent to the FBI has a classified answer. That answer has not been made public. Temu's privacy policy allows data transfer to third parties in China. Under China's National Intelligence Law, Article 7, enacted 2017, any Chinese company can be compelled to share data with state intelligence agencies. No judicial process required, no notification to users. Pinduoduo, Temu's sister app under PDD Holdings, was suspended from the Google Play Store in March 2023 after Google detected malware in versions of the software capable of accessing device data outside the app's declared permissions. Researchers at Lookout and WithSecure, 2 independent cybersecurity firms, confirmed the malware exploited a zero-day Android vulnerability to escalate privileges beyond what any e-commerce app requires. PDD Holdings denied the malware characterization. The attorneys general of more than 20 U.S. states have opened formal investigations into Temu's data practices. A federal class action lawsuit filed in New York alleges the app collected device data, including a location, contacts, and financial information, without adequate user disclosure. A second case is active in Illinois. The $3 blender is not what concerns them. Here's what Temu has not told you. The entire model had an expiration date, and that date passed on May 2nd, 2025. In 2025, the United States government eliminated the de minimis exemption for packages imported from China valued under $800. That exemption was the legal mechanism that allowed Temu to ship directly from Chinese factories to American consumers without paying standard import duties. Without it, the cost structure of every order changes materially. Temu's response has been immediate and revealing. It began recruiting US-based sellers and warehousing inventory domestically, a direct reversal of its founding architecture. The company that built its entire model on frictionless China-to-consumer shipping is now building the infrastructure of a conventional retailer. That transition costs money. It compresses margins further. It removes the structural cost advantage that made below-cost pricing possible. Temu is not the same company it was in 2023. The original plan ran its course. By May 2025, Temu had stopped all direct shipments from China to US consumers entirely. Its App Store ranking collapsed from number 3 to number 85 in 2 weeks. The model did not die slowly. It ended in a single executive order. The data was always the asset. The blender was always the cost of acquiring it. The model ended in 2 weeks. The damage it had already purchased took longer to see. Temu did not need to outlast Amazon. It needed Amazon to flinch, and Amazon flinched. Not in a press release, not in an earnings call, in its own interface. A new storefront.
Say hello to crazy low prices from Amazon Haul. Everything is under $20 with unbelievable finds in fashion, beauty, home, and more. Delivered in 2 weeks or less. To shop Haul, search Haul in the Amazon app.
Sub-$20 products. Direct from Chinese factories. Delivery in 1 to 2 weeks, not 2 days. No curation promise, no quality floor. When Amazon integrated Haul into its core interface, it wasn't just launching a sub-brand. It was performing a permanent alteration of its own DNA. It was the white flag. Retail industry analysts used a specific phrase to describe the experience. Neil Saunders, Managing director at Global Data Retail delivered the diagnosis off-brand, the most precise damage assessment possible. Because what Amazon built with Hall was not a subsidiary, not an experiment at arm's length. It was a channel operating on a different set of standards, a different definition of what the consumer could expect, inside the same platform that trained 300 million people to trust the box that arrived at their door. That is the structural damage Temu was purchasing with every dollar it lost. Temu paid the demolition budget to degrade the standards of its largest rival. It induced a race to the bottom that Amazon was never engineered to win. And then it simply allowed the regulation to take it out of the game. It didn't need to stay. It only needed to ensure that when it left, Amazon was no longer Amazon. Amazon's own 2024 brand protection report contains a sentence that reads like an epitaph for what Hall represents. It says, "Customer trust is difficult to earn and easy to lose." They wrote it about counterfeiters. The mechanism it describes is the same. Temu did not destroy Amazon's revenue. It destroyed the version of Amazon that existed before anyone had to ask the question, is this real or is this Hall? That version of Amazon cannot be rebuilt. The consumer who learned to ask that question will not unlearn it. The capital burn was never about selling products. It was the price of admission to dismantle the West's premier commercial infrastructure from the inside out. Temu is gone. The doubt it injected into 400 million people is permanent. In 2022, Temu didn't exist. In 2025, the model that built it no longer exists either. In May 2025, Temu stopped shipping blenders. Kept the data, 431 million behavioral profiles, no expiration date, no public explanation of what happens next.
Feels like a dream, feels like magic. Now I believe I can have it. Ooh, ooh, Temu.
What was Temu actually building? That question has not been answered. Not by Temu, not by PDD Holdings, not by any regulator. Most people open Temu looking for a bargain. Now, you know what Temu was looking for.
Download the Temu app and shop like a billionaire.
Next black box opened, Spotify. You have been paying $12 a month to remove ads. The ad was never the product. Which company should we autopsy next? Subscribe if you want the diagnosis.